Cleveland Browns fans, I don't know about you, but it feels like we are still living in the shadow of the worst draft mistakes in franchise history. Johnny Manziel just admitted on the Rich Eisen show that the Kansas City Chiefs were ready to draft him at pick 23 if our front office had not traded up to grab him at 22. It is a haunting thought to imagine Manziel developing under Andy Reid instead of spiraling out here in Cleveland. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your name and city in the comments below. Let's get into it. Johnny Manziel is back in the headlines again, stirring up old memories about his tumultuous time in Cleveland. We all remember how the 2014 NFL Draft changed everything for our franchise, when former general manager Ray Farmer traded up to select him at pick 22. For those of us who lived through that era, Manziel remains a symbol of missed opportunities and organizational instability that defined those lean years. On a recent episode of The Rich Eisen Show, Manziel revealed that he likely would have ended up with the Kansas City Chiefs at pick 23 if our front office had not intervened to secure him just one spot earlier. It is a painful realization for many of us who still wonder how his career might have unfolded under the guidance of a proven offensive mind like Andy Reid. The prospect of him playing alongside talented teammates like Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe, and Travis Kelce creates an obvious alternate history that feels like a gut punch to long-suffering fans. And the more I look at this, the frustration really stems from the fact that our team failed to provide the structure he desperately needed to succeed in the league. Despite his raw talent, his well-documented struggles with maturity off the field likely would have hindered his progress regardless of his destination. Many fans feel a mix of exhaustion and nostalgia discussing these what-if scenarios, as we prefer to focus on the current direction of our club rather than the mistakes of the past decade. It forces us to ask a difficult question though, and that is whether the culture in our building at that time was destined to fail any young quarterback, or if Manziel was simply a lost cause from the moment he arrived in town. The most startling revelation is that the Kansas City Chiefs had every intention of drafting Johnny Manziel at pick 23 before the Browns jumped ahead to select him at pick 22 in the 2014 NFL Draft. This massive shift in the organization's trajectory came down to a single desperate trade by former general manager Ray Farmer, which forever altered our franchise history. Think about it this way: had Farmer stayed put, our team would have avoided the internal chaos that defined the Manziel era entirely. The backstory here is rooted in a front office culture that prioritized splashy, high-risk maneuvers over disciplined roster building, a recurring issue that we have seen plague this organization for decades. Behind closed doors, you have to wonder if current leaders like Jimmy Haslam and Todd Monken look back at these front office failures with frustration, especially as they focus on maintaining a more professional culture in 2026. Coaches and executives prioritize stability above all else today because they know that one impulsive draft day decision can set a franchise back by years. Manziel's career remains a cautionary tale of talent meeting poor preparation, and history shows us that even the most innovative offensive schemes cannot save a player who lacks the necessary commitment to the professional grind. While we look at the Kansas City Chiefs now and admire the standard they have built under their current leadership, we are left to wonder if the outcome would have been any different for the young quarterback in a more structured environment. Regardless of where he landed, the reality is that the intensity of the NFL level requires a maturity that simply was not present. We have learned that the hard way in Cleveland, forcing our current staff to focus strictly on reliability as they steer this team toward a much more stable future. Looking back at the 2014 draft reminds us that the history of this franchise has often been defined by what could have been rather than what actually occurred. The revelation from Johnny Manziel on The Rich Eisen Show regarding the Kansas City Chiefs missing out on him by just one spot highlights the fragility of our past rebuilds and the chaotic nature of our front office decisions. Now here's the thing. While this story is years old, it serves as a stark reminder for us today about the importance of organizational stability under our current leadership. The ripple effect of that selection consumed significant draft capital and salary cap space that left our roster thin for seasons afterward. When we look at our current depth chart, we are finally moving past the era where we rely on projects. focusing instead on a disciplined approach that respects every asset we acquire. This change in philosophy is vital as we prepare for upcoming tests against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. Those matchups are always won in the trenches and through smart, consistent play rather than the gamble of a high-risk talent. If we had been more cautious back in 2014, perhaps we would have built the foundation for a perennial contender much sooner. Instead, we spent years playing catch-up while the rest of the AFC North capitalized on our instability. Today, our standing in the division depends on avoiding those same catastrophic mistakes that defined that draft class. We are currently in a better position to contend for the playoffs because we no longer gamble our future on players who do not fit the culture. Every game against our rivals now carries the weight of a franchise that has learned that being patient is far more rewarding than chasing a headline. If the Kansas City Chiefs had selected Johnny Manziel back in 2014, the potential upside for his career seems obvious on paper. Landing in an organization with established stability and high-level offensive guidance could have acted as a necessary buffer for a young player still learning the professional ropes. Pairing him with dynamic weapons like Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe, and Travis Kelce under Andy Reid offers a fascinating glimpse into a scenario where a high-energy playmaker might have flourished instead of burning out. The truth is, that environment might have provided the structure required to harness his unique skill set, rather than letting it spiral into the off-field distractions that ultimately cut his time short. However, we must consider the significant counter-argument that no amount of coaching could have immediately fixed the character issues and lack of maturity he demonstrated at that time. Even the best systems in the league struggle to curb a player who is not fully committed to the grind of professional football. Many analysts and league observers have long debated this specific what-if, often pointing to the contrast between the environment in Cleveland and the more disciplined approach of other franchises. Some suggest that even if he had been drafted by Kansas City, or perhaps even by teams like the San Francisco 49ers or the Dallas Cowboys who were also scouting high-profile prospects, the outcome would have remained largely the same. Here is where I land on this. While the prospect of him playing for a master tactician is alluring, the narrative that he would have been a guaranteed success in a different city feels like a reach. His internal struggles were likely too deep to be solved by simply changing the logo on his helmet, regardless of how much we might wish things had unfolded differently. Reflecting on this old draft narrative, it serves as a stark reminder of how far our organization has traveled since the 2014 season. Looking ahead, this realization reinforces the importance of stability within the current front office and the leadership of Todd Monken as we build towards sustained success. While it is natural to wonder what might have happened if Johnny Manziel had landed in Kansas City instead of Cleveland, dwelling on those missed opportunities does not change our path forward. The bottom line here is that the Browns are no longer the franchise that chases high-risk projects. We are focused on disciplined development and building a championship culture through sound decision-making. Heading into this upcoming season, you should feel a genuine sense of confidence in where this team stands. We are moving past the era of chaotic roster moves and toward a clear, consistent identity that prioritizes veteran leadership and smart schematic planning. The nostalgia surrounding the Manziel era is merely a footnote that confirms we have finally moved past our darkest years to arrive at a much more stable destination. It is a relief to know that our future is now defined by the work we put in today, rather than the ghosts of draft picks past. I want to know your take on this specific hypothetical scenario. If the Browns had never traded up to pick 22 in that draft, do you believe the team would have been better off in the long run? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Dawg Pound. I'll see you in the next one. Because the future of this franchise rests on bold decisions, your perspective truly matters. Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and stay tuned for more exclusive Cleveland Browns coverage coming soon.